I think she's just muted, guys.
Good morning. Good morning, folks. I hope you are all doing well. I'm going to share my screen this morning. See if I can get back to the other screens. Let's go there. So this morning we are going to talk about all sorts of fun things that are questions that I get as a broker, and some fun forms that some of you may not be aware that are out there. Good morning, Art. So hopefully you guys can all see my screen. And I have, this was a purchase contract that was sent on one of our properties recently. And I hope you guys can all read that. But what it says is the seller to have new roof installed before close of escrow, estimate to be approved by buyer before the work is started. Would anyone in this room like to tell me what might be wrong with that sentence being attached to a purchase contract?
It's not coming through the.
It's not coming through? It's not coming on Facebook?
I don't see it.
Uh-oh. That is odd. Hold on a second, folks. We may have a technical issue. Yeah, it's on Facebook. Oh, you just hit the play. It'll see it. You should be able to see it there now. See? Now I gotta get back to my screen. So it should be on there. All right, folks. So again, can anybody in here want to give me an idea?
It's too ambiguous, number one.
So hopefully online you guys can hear that the comment was it's too ambiguous, right? So seller to have new roof installed before close of escrow. Just to give you an idea, this seller is in negotiations with their insurance company. They knew the roof needed to be done before taking the listing. But what is wrong with the second sentence? Estimate to be approved by buyer before the work is started. Who has control over insurance companies' repair of a roof?
Yeah, it'd be the seller.
Would be the insurance
Could be
company.
the insurance company. Right.
It's not a buyer to have any say in that matter whatsoever. So if the seller agrees to this, and the buyer says, well, this is what I want. Well, first of all, we don't know what they're going to say they may or may not want. So be very careful when there is, I think your word is correct, ambiguity, right? Because what does that mean? What are they going to have the ability to approve, right? What are you granting the buyer if the seller signs this? They're going to say that the buyer can approve the work that their insurance company is going to do? How do you possibly allow the buyer to have that right? What rights are you giving them?
Why does the buyer care what the estimate is, as long as they're getting the roof they want, which they should have stated in the first sentence?
Right, you know, what they want is the roof to be done, and that is certainly underway.
But what material, you know?
Sure. Could the buyer have the choice in the color if it's an asphalt shingle roof? Could they have the choice in a few other things? Possibly. But the challenge here, and the reason I bring this up is, as you said earlier, the ambiguity, right? Because if you grant, you know, you've got a contract that is between a buyer and a seller. Depending on what you're agreeing to, are you in fact going to mess up something with your insurance company and or this deal? If the estimate comes in and the buyer's like, well, this just, you know, I have to have the latest and greatest, I need a 40-year tile. That isn't what is said here, but you've given the approval to a third party that has nothing to do with your insurance company, right? And honestly, as a seller, you don't have much choice in the matter. Right? You can add things if you want to pay for them, but the insurance company is going to tell you what they're going to pay to fix that roof. So today we're going to go over some other things like this. So here is a page 8 of 10 of a purchase contract. Can anybody tell me what looks odd about this page? Got a whole bunch of stuff typed on here. Are they the same font? Can you see that? Okay. The one at the bottom's not. It's a different font. In fact, it's cut and pasted on top. Isn't that interesting? So it says, see addendum 1 for additional miscellaneous items. So this literally came in this week. The seller signed the contract. The seller's agent added see addendum 1 for additional miscellaneous items and delivered with the contract the addendum 1 that gave a whole bunch of things that were no longer included instead of writing a counteroffer.
And didn't have parties initial what he inserted?
Oh, no, nothing was initialed up here. This is actually a copy of the document. I cut and pasted it, right? So, so if you are going to change the purchase offer, if you are the seller, what is the method to do that?
Counteroffer.
A counteroffer, right? Why did the agent not want to do a counteroffer? Any guesses?
Because it might kill the deal.
Oh my gosh, it might very well kill the deal. And so they did not want the deal killed. So they had it accepted, but they really didn't. I mean, they did. Technically they're under contract, but not with addendum 1 because it's not signed. And there's no reason the seller or the buyer has to sign addendum 1. So, and then all other terms and conditions remain the same. Well, no, because you just added this where it didn't belong. So please make sure if you are either the buyer's agent or the seller's agent, you are proceeding on an offer in the correct procedure. You write the offer as the buyer's agent on behalf of the buyer. If the seller does not like what is there, they should counter it. Now, the only time that is not the case is if you have an addendum that, it's not a big deal, but you just want to clarify something and you call and you verbally clarify it and the client's okay if it doesn't get signed, then you could send the addendum with it, but you don't say see addendum 1 on the purchase contract. The purchase contract's done. You can't add something in there because the buyer is the one that initiates that. So anytime you have a sequence where there's an initiation and a response, you can't go back and edit that initiated document, anything on there. You can't, the only thing you can add to a purchase contract, folks, is if you are the seller's agent, you can add your information on your block down on page 10, right? That says you work for Realty One Group. This is your address. This is your contact information. You absolutely can add that without going back to the buyer. In fact, that is why it is below the buyer's signature. You can edit that section below. Otherwise, you should not be touching anything above the buyer's signature. Okay. All right. So I stole something else here. How many of you have worked with a trust recently? Any of you sold something on behalf of a trust? So this is one, and we've got our title people here. Good morning, Julia. We've got Art here as well from Rock Title. If you are selling something on behalf of a trust, and here it's interesting because they wrote that the seller, and I apologize who's ever listing this or property, I did this, but the seller, they say an individual name, and then they say a trust name. And then they put AKA with an individual's name, which also known as. So there is so much that is not accurate about that. The question is, who is actually selling the property, not who is signing on behalf of who is selling the property. If the seller is a trust, then the name on the seller line needs to be that trust's name. Now, sometimes you can have the John Smith Trust dated May 15th, 1995, right? Sometimes you'll just have the John Smith Trust. That's fine. I don't know, and we can ask title people here. Does it matter? Do you have to have dated on? So they're both shaking your head. You don't have to. Is it wrong if you have dated on there as long as the trust document was actually dated on that date and wasn't revised 6 times?
Yeah, I mean, it's, as long as it's not an erroneous date.
It could be an updated version.
Yeah, because
One of the
there's,
first included.
yeah, well, when we get the as long as the date on corresponds to either the updated date or the original date of the trust, so that we can link the two together. If it's a date altogether different, then
Then you have a problem.
yeah, then I have a problem. And I've actually had it happen where they did the parents had totally redone the trust. The kids had copies of the updated trust, but that was a total different date. They had just, when they moved to a different state, when they moved here to Arizona, they redid their trust. And put the property in the new trust, but the kids still had the old trust that was from a different state, that had a different date. It was a mess.
Which isn't valid.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so which then made it invalid. So,
Yeah.
so be very careful. And so I bring this up. These are real documents, folks. This just came through. Now, they were trying to fix this, right? So, and maybe it is that the owners are George N. Clark and the Clark Family Trust. And then Radford B. Clark is the signer, and that's also spelled wrong, but signer for the Clark Family Trust. So if you do need to adjust who is signing on behalf or the names early on, you can change the name by just saying the owners to be known as, or to be amended to read. But oftentimes, and I don't have a copy of this here, people try to add a buyer later on. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but I want to go over a few other things with this. So usually, if the property is owned by the trust, it is not owned by an individual and the trust. It is usually only owned by the trust. But you can have 2 scenarios where you have an individual plus a trust. So if that's the case, there's nothing wrong with that here. I just would not put AKA Radford B. Clark in there, because it is not also known as the Clark Family Trust is the Clark Family Trust. The signer may be the signer, but the trust is not known as an individual. That would not be an accurate statement. But one of the things also, if you notice, the buyer on this is Black Arrow Capital LLC. Now, I actually have seen this buyer several times. They're one of our local investors, and that's fine. So what I'm going to move on to is what happens when you have, oops, am I not able to scroll down here? Proof of funds. So this is the proof of funds, and I'm sorry, my screen is not quite showing everything. I mean, this is all of what you see. There was no footer on the bottom of this. This was the proof of funds. So for those of you not used to Canva, now, first of all, I could do this in Word, by the way. I don't need Canva for this, but for those of you that don't know Canva, I mean, you can make a really nice letterhead for anybody if you wanted to. So for those of you doing deals that you have cash buyers or large down payments, you need to start thinking about these proof of funds letters. Now, in this scenario, this is probably legitimate, but what are some red flags here that should make you do a little research?
No real letterhead with the business information on there. Just doesn't, looks like it was just created, like you said, out of a Word doc. I could make something.
Can you see that?
This
So-
is a lending partner, but isn't it a cash? Is that the proof of funds for a cash deal, and it's
So it's-
from a lending partner?
It's proof of funds. It's backed by Frank West Capital LLC as a lending partner for this purchase. So one of the big things that would make me stop here, let alone the fact that you're correct, there is no letterhead here, but letterhead's easy to make, so that doesn't really matter.
That's true.
But one of the things you try to look for on any proof of funds, and usually we would prefer a bank statement, by the way, but there's no date on here. When was this written?
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
When does this like
Before he
expire?
bought 3 houses.
Before he bought 3 houses, right? So, it was valid a week ago. But so there is no date on here. There's no expiration on here.
that's
So
right.
what can you do if you are the listing agent and you receive this on behalf of a buyer? Request a bank statement. You're not going to get a bank statement because they're using basically a hard money lender. You're not going to get a bank statement. What else can you
Google
do?
them so you can get a phone number.
Google them so you can get a phone number. So let's see if I can switch this over. So what is this? Frank West Capital LLC. So
I would
let's
go to the corporate commissioner and see if it's valid and what state it's out of.
Frank West, what was it?
Capital.
Capital LLC. Look, I'd already done this. So a couple of things when you Google that, right? See if my Google's going to work here. But start with Google, right? So find out, first of all, if you wouldn't go to Google.
No, I would go to the corporate commissioner.
Okay,
I
no,
would
that,
go- I
no,
would go to the corporate commissioner,
I'm not disagreeing with that.
and then I would take the address that it shows the business at from the corporate commissioner
Right.
and go into Fast People Search with that address and see who it shows they show at that address.
So that is all absolutely great advice, right? So go into the Corporation Commission. I'll show you that on the next one because I do have that information. No, you're good. That's fine. But I would be doing this to see that they are actually here. Now, I think one of the reasons that there is concern for just Googling is because could somebody set up a false presence, right? And one of the things you're looking for is how long have they been in business? And again, the Corporation Commission is a great way to go look for that stuff. So let me see if I can go back to my document. Okay. So again, date, checking the address, right? So what we were talking about was when you did Google this, over on the right-hand side, it doesn't have the same suite number, but it does have the 4365 East Pecos Road. It just has a different suite. So I would be Googling both the buyer, this MCLC United Unlimited LLC, and the Frank West Capital. I would be going to the Corporation Commission. May have you show me how to do that in just a second so we can show everybody where to go. So here is another one, and I'm gonna have to scroll. This actually is on letterhead. There is a nice pretty title on the top, right? It does have a date there. It does have when this is valid through, right? So this is Black Arrow. Oh, that other one was a different one. I'm sorry about that. This is the Black Arrow Capital that we were talking about, confirmation of funds, okay? Here is the Solomon Foundation that was the one that was actually another one for a verification of funds. And this is on actual letterhead, okay? With a footer at the bottom of the page. I cut it off, but it did actually have that. Now, here is what happens when you look up. This buyer was TGC Investments LLC and looked up to verify that they were actually in good standing. Now, this is saying as of 2021. So how often does the LLC stuff get reviewed? I mean, that's not that far out, but, and they were obviously there for a while. It goes on. I just didn't continue that.
When you go on the corporate commissioner side, the thing that's different with Arizona than different states is Arizona, you set it up and pretty much you're in good standing. You pay your fees, you put it in. Sometimes people will do more on a corporate level. They'll do updates annually, but for regular LLCs, they don't have any requirements to. But when you go onto the corporate commissioner, you can see who the authorized signers are and exactly how their name reads. It'll show you who the members are, who the managers are. If it's set up as member managed or manager managed.
Okay, so I'm going to jump back
Yeah,
here.
so if you just put in the entity
What
name
was
there.
What was the name of that earlier entity? Let's go back up to let's do Black Arrow Capital, okay? Black Arrow Capital LLC. So Black, oops. Arrow Capital.
And then just do the search at the bottom there.
What did I spell that wrong? Is it AL? There we go. So
Now if you click
if
on
I
that,
click on this, it's going to give us the information.
mhm.
They
Now
were
it shows that they established it. Status was in good standing as of 12/11. So then if you scroll
of
down.
2019.
Mhm. Scroll down, and then you can see it's member and manager
Manager.
managed, okay, and if you go down, you can also get to the document, if you click the, see where it is document history? Right there, the blue in the bottom in the middle, blue bottom in the middle,
Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
it's okay. And scroll down. See, then it has where there's their articles of
Statements, huh?
organization and then a statement of change. So that would have been where they either changed their statutory agent or they changed their physical address or whatever
Right.
change they did. So
Okay. So,
it
when
has the manager's name right there. So that's who is the signer right there. Yeah.
the James
Mhm.
or the manager is Hunter Raish or
Mhm.
statutory agent name.
Yeah, that's just the agent.
The
The agent is mail on your behalf.
Receives mail for purposes primarily of lawsuits.
For
They're not
servicing, that's who you would
acting as
serve.
the LLC. They're just authorized to receive. I've been a statutory agent. You're just receiving the lawsuit.
Okay.
You're not acting on behalf of them.
So here's the thing, and unfortunately, I don't have a copy of somebody's trust, but this is a great example when you're working with a business. You should be looking this up to find out who has the right to sign. And I've talked before about signatures. So if you are signing on behalf of an entity, you're signing comma something. So here Hunter Ray should be signing comma manager of that Black Arrow Capital LLC. If you've got somebody else signing on those documents, you need to ask where they show that that person has the right to sign. And there may be other people that do.
Yeah, it'll be in the operating agreement. Or they'll have, if in a corporation, you'll have a corporate resolution.
There's
that has,
articles of incorporation are here.
yeah,
The original, when they first set up. they
Yeah.
did change.
yeah.
Correct.
I had the amendment
They
after.
did have that manager change, but there may be other people on here. So this is saying that it's just Hunter. So
No, that's the organizer. It's
You're only
just him.
required. to
Yeah,
have
the
articles of
signature, though.
incorporation If you have them, otherwise you can file this little, this small, this is the articles of
You're single.
organization. If there's additional documents that you've created with other members or signatory options, you have to file that also. So this means it's just a very basic format.
Mhm.
okay, so they don't have much out here is what they're
Mhm.
saying. Okay, so we're going to go back over to these pages. So again, the reason for bringing these up is for you guys not just to grab that proof of funds and throw it in the file. Look at it. Look for an expiration date, okay? If they're sending you a bank statement and the bank statement has a different LLC name on it, well, wait a minute, would you allow a proof of funds for John Smith if the buyer is Sydney Johnson? Like, well, no, you wouldn't. The money is supposed to flow through from the person that's buying the property. Yes.
I had actually, it was a year before last. I had a contract that came in. And the buyers were supposedly getting a settlement from a lawsuit. So they had a letter from an attorney. And then, and so they were gonna be paying cash. We got all the way up near closing and, oh, the settlement was taking longer. They wanted to do a pre-possession. And, oh yeah, they were thinking about doing the pre-possession. Well, then it turned out that it was all false. There was no, and we found where they had other court cases. They know what they were doing is they were getting into a house and then they would have to evict them to get, and they had a whole gaggle of kids. And so they would move into the house and then they would buy time And then they would start an eviction process and then they would hurry and move out. Yeah, but they would be there for like months. Yeah. And luckily they didn't move in beforehand, but yeah, to where you have to really be careful. I mean, this was an attorney's letter and the attorney was baloney. It was just all garbage. Yeah.
Well, that brings us up to an interesting conversation. Thank you for that lead in. She had no idea I was going to present this. You know, title does a lot of things, and the American Land Title Association did create something called the seller impersonation fraud in real estate. This is a big issue. This is a big issue going on today. We are dealing with it all the time. Please, please, please work with your title officers. And I actually have gotten the call from the agent that said, hey, I just had somebody call wanting me to list this piece of property and they're out of the country and they just want to get it sold fast. And I've got a buyer and I'm like, okay, I just don't even want to tell you how many red flags that is. Like, so, I was just at the industry partners conference last week. If you are able to go to that conference next year, I highly recommend it. We sit first of all, there are presenters that speak in the beginning. Some of our finest attorneys are up there, representatives from title companies and from lenders as well. And then in the afternoon, we sit down and have scenario-based conversations at tables with realtors, title, and lenders. And what is fascinating about that, especially for those new agents out there, it is really, really easy to make assumptions on what is going on for the other people at that table, for how lenders might address something, how title might address something. And the reality is if you don't work in those industries, don't make that assumption. Please pick up the phone and call, find out how things impact them. We had some amazing scenarios, including, as I just kind of alluded to earlier, if a check is written for the earnest money and it is not from the buyer, it impacts a great deal on how that file processes. And I don't know if I can put you guys on the spot, but we just had a lender come in from Epic and we have title here. And I could share with you, but I'd rather have fun. So how does that impact the transaction? I'll start with Barb since she just arrived. Isn't that nice of me to throw you under the, but how does that impact you as a lender if you have a file that the buyer themselves did not actually write the check?
So we have this happen quite often, and normally the buyer has to be the one to write the earnest money check, because it has to come from their verified funds. So this one I had recently, the parents wrote the check because the buyer was out of town. But the good thing was he reimbursed them right away and we were able to write a letter of explanation. But otherwise, it would be considered a gift from said mom or dad or family member. But if it wasn't a family member, then that's also an issue. So what we do sometimes is back it out and then act like we didn't get an earnest money check. So they have to come up with it at closing and then they'll get a refund to the person that wrote the check. But ultimately, the buyer should be writing the check from their own funds, and that's the easiest way. That's the bottom line.
So I don't know if Art or, okay, so I'm okay.
Yeah, there's also on a large number of cases where they'll write it from their business account. And so then I have to reach out to the lender before I receipt it in and make sure that they've sourced the funds from the business account and that it's not going to cause an issue with it coming from the business. I've had where large amounts have come in and the lender has required a CPA letter that it wasn't going to impact the business because they were self-employed, but they were taking a huge amount of money out of the business towards their home purchase. And so again, even if it's out of their business account and they're the owner of the business, it still could cause an issue.
And verified accounts means 2 months of bank statements from any account that there's money coming out of for the transaction.
So what happens if further on in the file, the buyer is in breach and that earnest money and the file cancels and the earnest money technically shouldn't be going back to that buyer, what happens if it was a third-party check?
If if it's coming in and it's not the buyer, we'll request a gift letter if it's gonna be gift funds. And if if the lender doesn't have the gift letter yet, they're not that far in the process. We have a third-party deposit form that is completed that says that the person who's the donor or that's bringing in the funds has to sign that they're aware that if the transaction cancels, that the funds don't go back to them. They go however they're dispersed through the cancellation to where they'll either go back to the buyer, or if they're forfeited, they'll go to the seller. But that in no circumstance are those funds refundable back to them directly.
So, this is the thing that we don't think about as realtors, right? Because it's not our place to think about what's happening with those funds. Title takes care of that. But if we see that there's a check that comes in, we need to know that there could be an issue there, right? Because if that third party authorization does not get signed and you represent the seller, you can kiss that money goodbye, because it's not going to come your way. I mean, it's going to be held up in title until we can get some resolution for it. But you've got to get that.
I won't
You've got to
even
get that.
post it to the file. So technically,
Okay.
until I have that signed third party or gift letter, I'm not even applying that to the file. So I'll let the listing agent know that I technically don't have funds. I don't have good funds because what I have, I can't use yet. Either I'm not getting the contact information to be able to reach out, because I have to reach out to that third party directly and get their email, get their phone number, and send them the form. So I won't even post it to the file unless I've gotten confirmation and documentation.
And to those realtors here, how soon does the earnest money need to be deposited or delivered?
Contract says immediately. Yeah.
Immediately, okay? Please do not write into your contracts anything to do with a time frame. Leave the contract wording that says immediately there as it stands. And that means literally as soon as you can get that in. Obviously, if it's a Saturday, you can't get it in on a Sunday because the title company is closed. But that does mean Monday it should be getting deposited. Now, if they're waiting for wiring instructions, they've got to get the wiring information, then they've got to get the wire ordered and sent. So will it necessarily happen on a Monday? Not necessarily, but that's why the word is immediately. It is getting it done as quickly as can possibly be done. But let's look at some of these red flags, and everyone online and here, please note that the red flags are not just for raw land. They are seeing these scams take place on vacant properties all over the place, okay? Because if a property is empty, they're able to easily make it look like it is their property. They don't have to be here. They can go out there and get an LLC. This is the only concern I have about the LLCs, right? I can go out and order an LLC for, I'll just use Jane Smith, right? I can create Jane Smith LLC. I can then go create a bank account for the Jane Smith LLC. I do not need a driver's license. I do not need any of that information for that LLC establishment. I can create those bank accounts. Then I can probably come up with a way to forge, easily get a driver's license to match all of that other information, trying to get title to recognize that I'm now Jane Smith, okay? So it is possible to get things in place that make it look like I am somebody else very easily today, right? And if I'm not in the country, if money is going someplace else, it is very easy to have those funds disappear. So if you've got a vacant or non-owner occupied property, such as an investment property, vacation property, or funny rental property, we don't have any vacant vacation properties here, right? So has a different address than the owner's address or tax mailing address, has no outstanding mortgage and liens. You will be surprised though, guess what? They're getting savvy enough. They are more than willing to pay off $100,000 lien because they're going to get $600,000 or $700,000 and walk away. They'll be happy to pay off the lien for you. Isn't that nice of them? But you will lose your house. So if it's being sold below market value, that is one of the red flags, but it doesn't have to be. They're just trying to get a quick sale. So if they can find a buyer willing to move forward, they will do that. They typically want it to be in less than 3 weeks. They want a cash buyer. They will not attend the signing. They claim to be out of state or out of country. This is the frequent pattern. Go ahead.
If we have a file that just smells funny, we will require a RON notary, the remote online notary. And at first I thought, why would you do that? But what it is there's on the process on the website, when they're doing the RON signing, it's similar to like when you're trying to set up for your Social Security access or your DMV access. It asks you a series of questions that unless you are the person, you're not going to know it. You know, which of these addresses have you formerly lived at? Which car did you own? Which, you know, there are things that they would have through other government sources that they would have to validate, and they can't even sign the documents because they can't answer. It's a series of 6 or 7 questions that they have to answer in order to be able to do the online notary. And then another precaution that we do is we will never accept a payoff directly from a source. So in this case, if there's a lien of 100,000, we're going to order that payoff directly ourselves. We're not going to accept the seller giving us, oh, I ordered it online myself, here's the payoff, because we're going to need the Social Security number for the seller in order to be able to get that payoff. Yeah.
That's good. That's a good one I hadn't heard.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's look at some of the other stuff here. And we'll get this. So everybody that's not here can get a copy of this document. We'll try and get that sent out to you. So this talks about taking precautions. Oh, the best thing at this conference that talked about this. So is, I know we're all looking for business right now. But I want to tell you that I am not that special that I got that call out of all of the agents in the state to take that listing. Isn't that amazing that I got that call? Why did they choose me? Right? It's like, no, you are not that lucky. You are the one that's getting scammed. So please understand, you get that random call. Oh, hi, Melissa. I wanted you to sell my property. Gee, isn't that amazing? They just found me out of 70,000 agents.
It's not unusual from our point of view that you would have gotten that.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Yes. However, no, it is not the truth. And 9 times out of 10, that's why, 99% of the time, that is why it's a scam. You need to look at it and go, wait a minute. In fact, somebody relayed that they'd gotten the request to sell that large lot of land in Phoenix owned by John F. Long of all people. And it was like, wait a minute, why would John F. Long be contacting me to sell this piece of property that has been sitting vacant for decades, right? I think John F. Long may have a few realtors that company knows, right? So please take a minute and look at the information that you can uncover. Go to LLCs. The only problem with that, like I said, they are getting good. They're going out and creating these identities. If there's a property there, ask for a utility bill, right? One of the things that actually our commissioner suggested realtors do, ask for their driver's license, have them send it to you. They pulled up on the screen some of these driver's licenses though. Boy, you can get fake ID really easily. So the thing to look for is the watermark. There's a watermark there. And on the watermark, you'll see if the photo was just stuck on there, that the watermark stops and it doesn't go through the photo. That watermark is supposed to go all the way across that photo. And if it doesn't, that's a big red flag. The other, and I'm sure Title knows this, is no one signs their name the same exact way. And it's funny if you see 2 different things that are signed and it's literally picture perfect.
Yeah.
They copied and pasted it, and that's all it was. So And funny thing, they're kind of stupid in some cases because they do put photos of famous people on some of these IDs. It's like, why would you choose somebody that we're gonna know? Like, really? Like, go find some idiot photo of somebody that is like, no, don't do that. So managing the notarization, please try not to have them use a separate notary. Use our title companies that you know. We know there are title companies that are doing, or there are individuals at title companies that are involved in these fraudulent things. Obviously, we don't know who they are, but that is possible. So the more you know your escrow officers and know who is doing this, the safer we are with knowing, how to deal with some of this. But there's nothing to say that you can't ask for ID for a new client. You can ask for it. And then the more you ask for things that makes them uncomfortable, they're going to disappear. And just don't be offended by it. I mean, just be like thankful that they disappeared. Okay. So there's just a bunch of different things on here. This is a great little information that came from the American Land Title Association, just like we have our realtor associations, title companies have their associations, working really hard trying to make sure that the title officers know what is going on with some of these things. All right, I am going to move on to another subject here. Whoops. How many of you are using your AAR links? Actually, I was going to have this as a different spot. Okay, well, we'll start here. So let me back up actually. So if you're on AAR online, we'll see if we'll go there. So I had just gone in here and I typed forms. There are lots of forms on AAR line. We are used to going to our transaction desk or SkySlope forms. The reality is on AAR, you cannot access the forms that we use on transaction desk or SkySlope forms in a fillable file. They just say sample all over them. And if you are ever asked to send a copy of the contract, please, please, please go on here and send one that says sample written all over it. Do not ever send a blank copy of your purchase contract to anyone. It should always have sample written across it. I can't tell you how many times I have had people say, oh, I'll just write my own contract. I'm like, really? I didn't know you were a realtor. Oh, no, I'm not, but it's fine. I've got the form. I'm like, yeah, the form doesn't apply to you. You cannot use that form. It is copyrighted, by the way, and AAR is very much goes after people that use that.
And your information is at the bottom of the form. So if that form ends up being used in a fraudulent transaction,
Yes,
you're going to get drug into it.
yes, you are going to get called by AAR asking how they got that form. So again, please, please, if you ever do want that, you can come here and you want to go to this residential resale transaction forms. All of the forms that we use, again, have sample written all over them. You can email them from here. But the reason I came over here is I don't know how many of you know that there are a few forms that are fillable from aaronline.com. Now, I bring this up because we have had a couple of things come through. All right, look, see the pre-qual. Everyone wondered if you got a lender that's never used the pre-qual form. There they go. They can get the loan status update and pre-qual form to fill out, even if their association somehow they're not connected to AAR, or I'm sorry, the Arizona lending that would already give them to, and they can get them here. But the reason I'm coming here actually is because we are now seeing more and more mobile and manufactured home sales. If you are selling a mobile home, it means that it is movable and you are actually selling a piece of paper. It's called a title. Okay, it is not the land underneath it because it's not attached. These are mobile homes that are in mobile home communities where they are leasing the land. There is actually a contract that you can use. You come in here and click this. As a part of that contract, it refers to this manufactured housing homeowner information bulletin, either for a new or used property, that are fillable, but they're to be filled in by not you, either the seller, it's usually the seller in those cases, but you need to be aware of that, that's there. And then there is a buyer inspection addendum to that manufactured home. So I'm going to start by opening this little sales agreement. It has some similarities with things that we are doing, but I just thought you might want to see that it is a very simplified form. You fill in the blanks of the buyer and the seller. You fill in, look at this, the VIN number. Who knows what a VIN number is?
I do,
It's a
'cause I do probably 3 or 4 a month of these. yeah.
So it is a vehicle identification number. Again, you are selling a mobile vehicle. You are not selling land. That VIN number is just like an assessor number. It is required to do that transaction. And yes, honestly, we are seeing more and more of these because of price points. So please go through there. If you have any questions, you can give me a call. This form was created in 2017, but it was 2000, was it 2017 that we got the right to sell? I thought it was like 2019 that we've got the right to sell actual mobile homes rather than manufactured. So there's information, obviously, regarding trust accounts and things on how the money's to be handled. Please read through this. So it does say escrow matters, contract shall be instructions to an escrow company, dealer, or broker. We do not sell new homes. That's why I want to make sure you know, you cannot sell a new mobile home that is not already in a park. That is very clear. That has to be sold by brokers.
You'll also have some that are on land that they own.
Yes,
That aren't affixed. But if you go up further, if the sale price is under 50, they actually have an option of not using escrow, but I highly suggest that you do.
oh, okay.
So yeah, if you go up further, it has where the, if it's under 50,000.
It can be handled through a trust account by a dealer or
which,
broker.
right, which you probably want to specify that, that they need to use escrow, that you're not wanting to handle that.
Yeah, you know, we cannot handle
Yeah.
that. Sorry, we do not have a trust account. So this would just be the same thing with rentals. Realty One Group does not have a trust account, so
Yeah.
we cannot receive any money. We cannot do any disbursements like this. Please, please, you cannot check box 36. So if the property is, if it is a manufactured home on affixed to land, you use the regular purchase contract. You don't use this. But a lot of people didn't understand that this form existed. So you need to know, if you are dealing with a mobile home on leased land, this is the form. The other thing is, if you are taking a listing of a mobile home, you cannot put it in AR MLS. Is it, if it's, well, maybe if it's over. This is the contract, so this would not be there if it's a.
You know, I've seen people load those up pre-populated.
Yeah, I get them all the time. I get copies of them all the time. So I'll have to make sure.
So
she knows.
MLS is kicking them out right and left. We've had many of our agents that have had them kicked out. But there's a place called All State MLS that you can post them in. So,
There's also a nationwide database that you can put them in. that
Okay.
has- Yeah,
I had a gal looking 2 months ago at Apache Junction, right, beginning I started,
Mhm.
and I pulled up 10 easily.
Correct.
In MLS, and they had those each attached to the documents, like, this is how it works, and okay, different contract, I didn't bother mentioning, because it
There's
didn't
a-
happen.
uh,
But
Yeah, there's a different website that you can go to that will have all the different parks, has the information on the parks, has all of them that are listed for sale within those parks.
I think that's All
Um,
State.
No, it's a different one.
Okay.
But I'll see if I can find it. and I'll forward it.
So this is the buyer inspection period, just so you can see this. This is kind of like our little Binzer. But again, this is available to you. This is through AAR online. It is a fillable document that is available on this AAR online so that you can open those up and use them. So let's see. Clear cooperation. That was the last one I wanted to make sure I got through today. How can I find that? Let me go to a different page. So many of you are making or putting listings up that you are not, whoops, let me go back. Listings up that are not online yet, which is fine. You can put them through, but you need to make sure that you have this document. Where is it? Is it coming soon? Yes. All right. So this is coming soon or one exclusive listing. So clear cooperation is something from the national level that says, if you are advertising a property to the public, it has to be in the multiple listing system. Back in the day, we used to have things called exclusive listings, had our sign out there, had a little writer underneath it that said it was exclusive. It was only our listing and we would not provide a co-broke to anybody else. The clear cooperation rule came into effect, and basically if you had an exclusive listing, you could not have any signage anymore, and you could not send that information out on any public facing website without it going to the MLS, so everyone would have that same information. So I've seen a couple of things go through that people are not understanding, that you can do coming soon. That's fine. If the sign goes up, you can go into coming soon status, but if there's a sign up within 24 hours, you must be in the multiple listing system.
One business day, not 24 hours.
I'm sorry, correct. One business day. And that is a very important difference, because I could put the sign up on a Friday and the next business day is Monday. So it does not have to go into the MLS until Monday. It can go into the MLS as coming soon. And how many days is coming soon now limited to? 30 days. Okay. So what happened was somebody was getting ready to put a sign up, because many of us are dealing with these trusts, right? So if they're doing a clear out, if they're doing a bunch of yard sales or estate sales, it is not uncommon for somebody to walk in and say, I want to buy this house, right? So, but the reality is you need to have your paperwork put together. One of the very important things about what this document says is this top section is the very last sentence. It says owner is aware that any offers received prior to the home becoming available to all MLS participating brokers may or may not be the best, highest obtainable price or terms. It is critical you go over that with your sellers. I don't know about you, but many times I've talked to sellers. In fact, the deal that I closed back in June, the house was in horrible condition, and I tried to explain to the seller, if you will clean the house out, we can put it on the market at that point, right? You will get more money if you do this. She was insistent. We listed it. I literally was climbing over clothing to get through this home. I couldn't even check the box for what type of countertops there were because I could not see the countertops, right? So we sold it, and it resold prior to close of escrow, and somebody made $15,000-$20,000 on the seller because they wholesaled it during the process. Now, by the time we got to closing, the home was actually in really good condition, but we couldn't see it, okay? So when you're talking to sellers, if you're not disclosing this information, who do you think they're going to come back after if somebody makes $20,000 or $30,000 or $50,000 off of them that they didn't get? You guys, right? So please, that's why this document is so important. That's what they want to do. That's fine. But you need to make sure you give them that information and you get them to sign off on it. Very important. Now, both of these boxes should be, well, one of them should be checked or the other, okay? The top. Either it's not going to appear in the MLS until a specific date, or, and it's very important you realize you don't have to put a date there because it says or until owner delivers additional written instructions, whichever occurs first, okay? And they're aware that it will not be available to other participating MLSs. However, they grant you the right to market to Realty One Group agents. What site do you go to market to other Realty One Group agents prior to it going into the MLS?
The Facebook group specifically for Realty One Group.
It's called One Exclusives on the Realty One Group Facebook group. I'm sorry, it's the Realty One Exclusives in Facebook. And that will give you access to those things. Please do not put those in our individual Realty One Group area Facebook groups. Although they are private, they are not just Realty One Group agents. We have our title partners, we have our lending partners. That means people other than Realty One Group licensed agents are on there. That's why we have One Exclusives. It's totally separate. It's exclusive to licensed agents within Arizona that are eligible to be on there. And when somebody leaves our company, we have to scrub them from there because they cannot be with Keller Williams and get our listings, right?
So here's the question.
Yep.
So why are people able to tout these properties at tour meetings? And not fall under clear cooperation rules?
Well, they shouldn't be if they're if they were all Realty One agents, they could. No,
I 100% agree.
No, they
I
can't.
asked the leader of the group, why doesn't this violate fair question? I'm not really sure.
It
So I
totally
called
violates it.
MLS, and they said because it's a limited audience, not a broadcast marketing.
Oh, well, that would make sense.
So. okay.
I mean, to me, it doesn't make sense
It
that
doesn't
you
make
can
sense
go
to me either.
outside of,
The main Paradise Valley Facebook group. That'd be too. mean, what if you
I know.
can't-
I-
yeah, what's
it-
limited, right?
It didn't make sense to me.
The
So,
lawyer is like,
and it's important that you see this next section says the property should be placed in coming soon status on a specific date. And that
Melissa,
it
we
is
can't see
permitted
it.
to be promoted to the listing of the public while in coming soon status. So once it goes in as coming soon, then you can put it elsewhere because it is visible to other agents and throughout the MLS. Now, on the bottom of this, and I almost want this to be changed because I think it's important
Melissa,
for our sellers to understand
Melissa,
we're responsible for this. We
Melissa,
created
we
this
don't
so
have
that
the form.
agents understand that they're responsible for this, but that within the one business day of marketing a property to the public, that you must put it onto the multiple listing system. It's my experience that it's the sellers that are the ones saying, oh, no, you know what, could you wait another day? No, ma'am, no, sir, I cannot. I'm obligated, once we go into this position, I have to get it into the MLS. So I would prefer that we get this bottom part signed by the seller as well, not just the agent, because I think more times than not, it's the seller arguing with us saying, I want to hold on, I don't put it on. It's like, no, you need to understand I'm obligated to do that, right? You can be
Melissa,
fined if
we
you
don't see the
So,
form,
just
Melissa.
wanted to make sure, I know this was kind of an odd Monday mastermind, but I wanted to make sure that we had the chance to go over some of these things. These are things that have come to me literally in the last 2 weeks that I've had repeatedly different things come up on files where agents have asked questions. I do want to take just a minute and then I'll open up for quick questions, but next Monday, we are going to get a training live in Realty One Group, well, in Rock Title offices upstairs, but for our Monday Mastermind, we will get trained on the new Alignable service, which is the new version of Showing Time. Is that Alignable? Aligned? Aligned. It's aligned. So AAR is rolling this out. There was some disgruntled reaction when Zillow bought Showing Time. So in response, Arizona Association of Realtors created the aligned or bought the aligned system. It is being trained in person here. I'm gonna have to figure out how we're gonna do reservations for that because we can only get 30 people up there, right? About 30 people.
Yeah.
We
Fan the tables this way so people can have it.
I know that they had a technical glitch and I know that I tried to go in and do something on it because it is up and somewhat running. I know I've got a listing coming up that I was trying to put in and it wanted to force me to decide between Showing Time, aligned, or email or text. I thought that was very odd, but we will be trained on it. We will try to put it to our Zoom as well. I don't know how well that will come across from these presenters. So we'll do our best on that. There is online training that is probably going to be better than that, but we will go ahead and get that in there. Did I have any questions here from anybody here? No. Well, thank you so much for coming today. Thanks online. Sorry, I can't take questions from online. It's a little tough, but appreciate your attending and everybody have a great afternoon. I'm going to try to see who all of our participants online are. If everybody could, that is online, if you text me, here, I'm going to type in the chat my cell phone number if you don't have it. Oh, you couldn't see the AR form? Uh-oh. Sorry about that. I can't watch that and talk and present, so I'm not able to see the text. Okay. Okay, sorry about that. If you guys can text me, I will send you the link to this form, but I'm probably going to put it out to everyone. I've been on mute the whole time. Please tell me that is not true. People are responding. How is that possible?
Thank you.
Oh, no, that was earlier. Okay.
That's something I do.
I was like, somebody, if that ever happens, folks, please call the office. I certainly. No. All right. Oh, I got a whole bunch of people replying. Oh, you just didn't see one form. Okay. Thanks, Wes. Okay, thank you guys. Have a good one.
It's good to know that the LSU's out there because as I'm seeing more people move from out of state, they're using